In a world obsessed with instant gratification, overnight success and constant validation, ancient wisdom quietly whispers a different truth. The philosophy of Stoicism teaches that everything you seek, success, peace, influence, abundance, begins not with chasing the world but with mastering yourself. Many people misunderstand manifestation. They think it is about wishing harder, visualizing longer, or repeating affirmations until reality bends. But the Stoics understood something far more powerful. When you align your character with discipline, clarity, and virtue, the world begins to align with you. The great Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, later known as Meditations, that a man's life is shaped by his thoughts, not by luck, not by fate alone, but by the consistent direction of his mind and actions. Similarly, the former slave turned philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that we control only two things, our judgments and our actions. Everything else, wealth, praise, outcomes, lies beyond us. And paradoxically, when you master what is within your control, what lies outside often begins to move in your favor. Manifestation, through a Stoic lens, is not about forcing reality. It is about becoming the kind of person reality cannot ignore. If you embody discipline, opportunities appear. If you cultivate silence, clarity arrives. If you act with unwavering purpose, doors open. These are not mystical ideas. They are psychological laws rooted in human nature. The world responds to consistency, strength, and self-control. In the following 6 chapters, you will discover 10 Stoic rules that shape reality from the inside out. Each rule is practical, each rule is timeless, and each rule demands responsibility. You will learn why emotional control multiplies opportunity, how detachment increases attraction, why silence creates power, how discipline bends probability in your favor, why becoming indifferent to outcomes paradoxically produces better results. These principles have guided leaders, warriors, and thinkers for over 2,000 years. They are not trends, they are foundations. If applied consistently, they will not only change how you think, they will change how the world responds to you. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. Rule 1. Control what you can, release what you cannot. The first and most powerful Stoic rule for manifesting anything in life is simple. Control what you can, release what you cannot. It sounds basic. It is not. This principle alone separates those who quietly build extraordinary lives from those who endlessly chase circumstances they cannot command. At the heart of Stoicism lies a clear distinction. Some things are within your control, others are not. Your thoughts, your choices, your discipline, your reactions, these belong to you. The opinions of others, market conditions, timing, luck, and the final outcome of your efforts, these do not. Most people attempt manifestation backwards. They obsess over outcomes. They visualize applause before earning competence. They crave results without mastering inputs. And in doing so, they place their emotional state in the hands of forces they cannot govern. The Stoics understood something revolutionary. If you master your inner world, the outer world begins to organize itself differently around you. The great teacher Epictetus taught that suffering arises not from events, but from our judgments about events. When you lose control of your reactions, you lose power. When you anchor yourself to what you can control, you become unshakable. Consider this. You cannot control whether people support your vision, but you can control the quality of your preparation. You cannot force opportunities to appear, but you can become so skilled and disciplined that when opportunity arrives, you are ready. This shift in focus is the beginning of real manifestation. When your attention moves from, how do I make this happen, to who must I become, everything changes. Imagine 2 individuals pursuing the same goal. One constantly worries about recognition, validation, and results. The other focuses solely on refining skill, maintaining discipline, and strengthening character. Over time, the second individual becomes undeniable, not because he chased outcomes, but because he embodied excellence. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private reflections that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This insight is not philosophical decoration, it is strategic advantage. When you release what you cannot control, you reclaim enormous mental energy. Anxiety decreases, clarity increases, decision-making sharpens. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. Manifestation then becomes natural rather than forced. For example, you cannot control whether someone chooses to hire you, but you can control your preparation, your reliability, your composure in conversation, and your willingness to improve. When you consistently refine these controllables, rejection loses its sting. It becomes information, not identity. This detachment produces confidence, and confidence attracts. People trust those who are not desperate. Opportunities gravitate toward those who are steady. When you are emotionally dependent on an outcome, you unconsciously repel it. When you are focused on your effort and character, you become magnetic. Control what you can, release what you cannot. There is immense peace in this formula. When setbacks occur, you do not collapse. You ask, what is still within my control? Perhaps you can adjust your strategy. Perhaps you can refine your skills. Perhaps you can strengthen your patience. There is always something within your domain. Even in extreme adversity, your attitude remains yours. History repeatedly demonstrates this truth. Circumstances can restrain a body, but they cannot command a disciplined mind. This rule eliminates excuses. If something is within your control, take responsibility. If it is outside your control, release resentment. Both paths lead to strength. Many people wait for the perfect moment. They wait for motivation. They wait for certainty. But motivation is not under your control. Action is. Certainty is not guaranteed. Preparation is. When you anchor your life to controllable actions, daily discipline, deliberate practice, emotional restraint, you build momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds opportunity. And slowly, what once seemed distant begins to approach you. You also become less distracted. The modern world constantly invites comparison. Social media displays curated victories. News cycles amplify chaos. Opinions flood your awareness. If you attempt to control these forces, you will exhaust yourself. Instead, return to your circle of control, your habits, your standards, your schedule, your responses. This is how manifestation becomes practical rather than mystical. Each day, ask yourself 3 questions. What is within my control today? What is outside my control today? Am I investing energy in the wrong category? This daily audit sharpens focus. Over time, you notice a shift. You feel calmer in uncertainty. You act decisively in ambiguity. You stop fearing rejection because your self-worth is no longer tied to outcomes. And here is the paradox. When you detach from results and devote yourself fully to disciplined action, results improve. Why? Because you are no longer performing from anxiety. You are performing from alignment. People sense this alignment. It communicates competence. It communicates stability. It communicates leadership. Control is not about domination. It is about ownership. Own your effort. Own your standards. Own your response to failure. Release everything else. When you do this consistently, life begins to cooperate in unexpected ways. Not because the universe bends to your wishes, but because your behavior aligns with reality. You stop resisting what is, you start building what can be. This is the foundation of all manifestation. Before abundance, before recognition, before influence, comes self-governance. Master what is yours, release what is not, and watch how everything begins to come to you. Chapter 2. Rule 2. Discipline creates destiny. If controlling what you can is the foundation, discipline is the engine. Nothing manifests in the life of a distracted, inconsistent, emotionally reactive person. The Stoics understood that greatness is not created by intensity, but by repetition. Not by bursts of motivation, but by structure. In Stoicism, discipline was not a punishment, it was liberation. It freed a person from impulses, moods, and external pressures. It created stability in a chaotic world, and stability is power. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the perfect mood. But moods are unstable, inspiration is unpredictable. Discipline, however, can be chosen daily. The philosopher Seneca warned that if a person does not govern himself, he will be governed by his desires. And desires, when unchecked, scatter focus. One day you pursue one ambition, the next day you abandon it. One week you are committed, the next week you are distracted. This inconsistency quietly destroys manifestation. Discipline creates identity. When you show up every day, regardless of emotion, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries. You are someone who executes. Execution compounds. Imagine improving your craft by 1% each day. It seems insignificant. But over a year, that consistency separates you from the majority who rely on occasional effort. Discipline quietly bends probability in your favor. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly to rise and do the work of a human being. Even as ruler of the known world, he did not see discipline as optional. He saw it as duty. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" you ask, "Is this aligned with my purpose?" If the answer is yes, you act. Discipline is attractive. It signals reliability. People trust those who are consistent. Opportunities seek those who finish what they start. When you become disciplined, your reputation strengthens. And reputation opens doors long before talent alone does. Consider the difference between intensity and consistency. Intensity burns bright and fades. Consistency builds quietly and lasts. A disciplined person does not need external validation to continue. He is driven by standards, not applause. This internal standard creates calm confidence. When others panic, he proceeds. When others procrastinate, he prepares. Over time, this difference becomes visible. Manifestation through discipline works because the world rewards predictability. Employers reward reliability. Partners value stability. Markets reward patience. Success rarely belongs to the most emotional person in the room. It belongs to the most steady. Discipline also strengthens self-trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence increases. Every time you break it, doubt grows. Most people struggle not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack self-trust. They have disappointed themselves too many times. The Stoics trained daily. They practiced voluntary discomfort, they limited pleasures, they rehearsed adversity in their minds. These exercises were not extreme rituals, they were preparation. Preparation removes fear. When you discipline your body, your mind becomes sharper. When you discipline your time, your goals move forward. When you discipline your speech, your words carry weight. Everything compounds. There will be days when progress feels invisible. Discipline carries you through those days. There will be moments when results are delayed. Discipline keeps you grounded. Without it, impatience leads to quitting. And quitting is the silent killer of potential. Most people are closer to success than they realize, but they stop because the reward is not immediate. Discipline extends your horizon. It reminds you that long-term outcomes are built by short-term consistency. Think of discipline as planting seeds. You cannot dig them up every week to check if they are growing. You water them. You protect them. You trust the process. In the same way, you work daily. You refine daily. You improve daily. Results follow. Another powerful aspect of discipline is emotional control. When you regulate impulses, anger, envy, laziness, overindulgence, you conserve energy. Emotional volatility drains focus. Discipline preserves it, and preserved energy fuels progress. There is also freedom in discipline. When you commit to a routine, decision fatigue decreases. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply act. This simplicity reduces stress and increases output. Over time, others begin to notice. They may not see your early mornings. They may not witness your private struggles, but they will see your stability. They will feel your reliability. And slowly, opportunities align, not because of luck, because of structure. Discipline builds momentum. Momentum builds visibility. Visibility attracts opportunity. Opportunity, combined with preparedness, produces results. This is how destiny is shaped, not by dramatic moments, but by repeated choices. You cannot manifest a strong body without disciplined training. You cannot manifest financial growth without disciplined saving and learning. You cannot manifest respect without disciplined conduct. It is always the same formula. Daily action, steady improvement, emotional restraint. If you want everything to come to you, become the person who can handle everything. Discipline prepares you for responsibility, and responsibility attracts greater influence. Start small if necessary. Wake up at the same time, keep your word, finish what you begin, reduce distractions, protect your focus. Each disciplined act strengthens identity. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. In time, you will look back and realize that what once seemed impossible became inevitable. Not because you forced reality, but because you built yourself into someone reality could not overlook. That is the power of discipline. Chapter 3, Rule 3, Detach from the outcome. One of the most misunderstood principles of success is detachment. Most people believe that in order to achieve something, they must obsess over it. They assume that intensity of desire equals likelihood of attainment. But the Stoics taught something radically different. Attachment weakens you. Detachment strengthens you. At the core of Stoicism lies a powerful idea. Desire what depends on you, and accept what does not. When your emotional stability depends on a specific outcome, you become fragile. When you remain steady regardless of the result, you become powerful. Detachment does not mean indifference to effort. It means indifference to the final outcome. This distinction changes everything. The teacher Epictetus explained that when you kiss your child, you should remind yourself that they are mortal, not to become cold, but to appreciate without clinging. In the same way, when you pursue success, you give your full effort while understanding that the outcome is not guaranteed. Why does this matter for manifestation? Because desperation repels, calm confidence attracts. When you desperately need a job, approval, or recognition, your behavior subtly shifts. You over-explain. You overperform. You appear anxious. Others sense that you are emotionally dependent on the result. This creates imbalance. But when you detach from the outcome, your presence changes. You are composed. You listen more than you speak. You negotiate from stability. You are not afraid to walk away. And paradoxically, this makes you more attractive. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote that the wise person wants nothing excessively. Excessive wanting creates internal slavery. The more you need something to feel whole, the more power it holds over you. Detachment reclaims that power. Imagine preparing for an important opportunity. You train, you study, you refine your craft. On the day it arrives, you perform with full commitment. But inside, you remain steady whether you succeed or fail. If you succeed, you remain humble. If you fail, you remain composed. This emotional balance builds resilience. Most people swing between excitement and despair. When things go well, they become overly confident. When things go poorly, they collapse. This instability delays progress. Detachment smooths these extremes. It allows you to continue regardless of temporary results. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced war, betrayal, plague, and political turmoil. Yet in his reflections, later compiled as meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself to accept events as part of nature's order. He focused on doing his duty, not controlling destiny. This is the essence of detachment. When you release the need for a specific outcome, you eliminate fear of failure. And when fear disappears, performance improves. Fear tightens the body. It clouds judgment. It narrows creativity. Detachment relaxes the mind. It expands awareness. It sharpens focus. You begin to operate from clarity instead of anxiety. There is also a deeper psychological effect. When you are detached, you take smarter risks. You are willing to speak honestly. You are willing to decline what does not align with your values. You are willing to wait for better opportunities. Attachment pushes you to accept less than you deserve because you are afraid of losing the chance. Detachment allows you to choose from strength. In relationships, this principle is especially visible. The person who is overly attached often tries too hard to impress. The detached person who values connection but does not cling to it radiates confidence, and confidence attracts. In business, the same rule applies. When you are desperate for a sale, your tone changes. When you are calm and grounded, people trust you more. They sense that you are not trying to manipulate the outcome. Detachment does not reduce ambition. It purifies it. You still set goals, you still work tirelessly, you still pursue excellence, but your self-worth no longer depends on the result. This is freedom. When you are free from outcome dependence, you recover faster from setbacks. You learn instead of lamenting. You adapt instead of blaming. Every experience becomes information rather than identity. Over time, this resilience compounds. Others may outperform you temporarily. Others may receive recognition sooner. But if you remain steady, detached, and disciplined, you endure. And endurance often outlasts talent. There is another paradox here. When you no longer chase validation, validation appears. When you no longer beg for opportunity, opportunity arrives. When you no longer fear loss, loss loses its grip. Why? Because detachment aligns you with reality. Reality is uncertain. It does not guarantee results. When you accept this fully, you stop resisting what is. You flow with events instead of fighting them. This flow increases effectiveness. You become adaptable. You pivot without emotional drama. You see setbacks as temporary. You recognize that rejection is redirection. Manifestation through detachment is subtle but powerful. It shifts your energy from grasping to groundedness, from anxiety to assurance, from force to focus. Each day remind yourself, I control my effort, not the outcome. Give your best, release the rest. If something is meant to align with your preparation and character, it will. If not, your growth remains, and growth is never wasted. When you master detachment, you become unshakable. When you are unshakable, you become magnetic. That is the quiet power of letting go. Chapter 4, Rule 4. Master your emotions before they master you. If discipline builds structure and detachment builds stability, emotional mastery builds power. Nothing delays manifestation more than uncontrolled emotion. Anger ruins opportunities. Envy poisons focus. Fear shrinks action. Impulsiveness destroys progress. The Stoics were not emotionless. They were emotionally trained. In Stoicism, emotions were seen as judgments. You are not disturbed by events themselves, but by the meaning you assign to them. This idea, taught clearly by Epictetus, shifts responsibility inward. If emotion begins in interpretation, then interpretation can be disciplined. Most people react instantly. Someone criticizes them, they feel attacked. Someone succeeds, they feel inferior. Something goes wrong, they feel defeated. Reaction becomes automatic, but power lives in the pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a moment. In that moment lies your freedom. If you strengthen that space, you strengthen your life. Emotional mastery does not mean suppression, it means examination. When anger arises, ask, what belief is fueling this? When fear appears, ask, what assumption am I making? When jealousy surfaces, ask, what insecurity is being exposed? By questioning emotion, you weaken its grip. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote extensively about anger, calling it temporary madness. He warned that anger often punishes the one who carries it more than the one who receives it. A single emotional outburst can undo years of discipline. Think of how many opportunities are lost because of uncontrolled reactions. A harsh email sent too quickly, a defensive reply in a meeting, a decision made in frustration. Emotional instability creates long-term consequences from short-term impulses. Mastery prevents this. When you remain calm under pressure, people notice. Calmness signals strength. It suggests that you are not easily shaken. Leaders are trusted not because they never feel emotion, but because they are not ruled by it. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius governed during times of war, plague, and betrayal. Yet in meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself to remain patient with others, recognizing that ignorance, not malice, often drives poor behavior. This perspective changes your reactions. When someone insults you, you can view it as ignorance rather than attack. When someone rejects you, you can view it as misalignment rather than personal failure. When circumstances shift unexpectedly, you can view it as nature unfolding rather than injustice. Reframing reduces emotional intensity. Manifestation requires sustained focus. Sustained focus requires emotional regulation. If your mood changes your productivity, your results will fluctuate with your feelings. But if your productivity remains steady regardless of mood, progress becomes inevitable. Emotional control also enhances decision-making. Strong emotion narrows perception. Calm expands it. When you are emotionally reactive, you see only threats or insults. When you are composed, you see options. This is why mastering emotion increases opportunity. You notice openings others miss because they are too busy reacting. There is another dimension to this rule. People are drawn to emotional stability. In friendships, relationships, and business, predictability creates safety. If others feel they must walk on eggshells around you, they will distance themselves. But if they feel steady energy from you, they will gravitate toward you. Stability attracts trust. Trust attracts opportunity. Training emotional mastery requires practice. Start small. When irritation appears in traffic, observe it instead of feeding it. When anxiety rises before a task, breathe and proceed anyway. Each time you resist emotional impulse, you strengthen internal authority. Over time, you realize something powerful. Emotions are visitors, not rulers. They come, they peak, they fade. You do not need to obey every feeling. Most people act as if every emotion demands expression. The Stoic approach is different. Ask whether expression serves virtue and purpose. If it does not, let it pass. This restraint creates dignity. Dignity builds reputation. Reputation builds influence, and influence shapes outcomes. Imagine entering a room where others are tense. If you are calm, your presence shifts the atmosphere. Calmness is contagious. So is panic. Choose which energy you spread. Emotional mastery also protects long-term goals. Temporary frustration will tempt you to quit. Temporary excitement will tempt you to overcommit. Stability prevents both extremes. You remain steady, measured, intentional. This steadiness compounds over years. There is immense strength in not reacting immediately. Silence can be more powerful than argument. Composure can be more effective than confrontation. Patience can defeat aggression. When you master your emotions, you are no longer predictable in weakness. Others cannot manipulate you through provocation. They cannot control you through praise or criticism. You become internally anchored. And an anchored person is difficult to move off course. The world will test you. Delays will occur. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. If every challenge triggers emotional chaos, progress will stall. But if challenges strengthen your composure, growth accelerates. Manifestation is not magic, it is alignment. Alignment requires emotional balance. Master your emotions before they master you. In doing so, you reclaim your power, protect your focus, and build a presence that quietly commands respect. That is strength few can ignore. Chapter 5. Rule 5. Embrace obstacles as training. Most people see obstacles as interruptions. The Stoic sees them as instruction. If you want everything to come to you, opportunity, respect, growth, abundance, you must redefine difficulty. Because difficulty is not blocking your path, it is building you for it. At the heart of Stoicism lies a radical shift in perception. The obstacle is the way. What stands in your path is not there to stop you, but to strengthen you. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is practical psychology. When something goes wrong, most people react with frustration. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic asks, "What is this teaching me?" That single question transforms resistance into growth. Obstacles reveal weaknesses. They expose impatience, they uncover fear, they test discipline. Without resistance, these flaws remain hidden. With resistance, they surface, and what surfaces can be strengthened. Imagine trying to build physical strength without resistance. It is impossible. Muscles grow by pushing against weight. Character grows by pushing against adversity. If life were smooth and effortless, you would remain soft. Comfort breeds complacency. Struggle breeds capacity. The philosopher Seneca advised practicing voluntary discomfort, sleeping on a hard surface, fasting occasionally, exposing oneself to mild hardship. Why? To remind yourself that you can endure more than you think. Endurance creates confidence. When you survive difficulty, your self-image changes. You no longer see yourself as fragile. You begin to trust your resilience, and resilience attracts greater responsibility. Many people want success without struggle, but success without internal growth creates instability. If opportunity arrives before character is ready, it collapses under pressure. Obstacles prepare you to hold what you seek. Think about rejection. It stings, it challenges your confidence, but it also forces refinement. You improve communication, you sharpen skill, you strengthen emotional control. Over time, rejection becomes redirection. Think about failure. It feels heavy, it bruises pride, but it reveals strategy flaws. It builds humility, it strengthens patience. Without failure, ego would sabotage progress. Each obstacle carries information. The Stoic does not waste pain, he extracts instruction from it. There is also a deeper truth. When you stop resisting hardship, hardship loses much of its power. Suffering increases when you argue with reality. When you accept reality and respond strategically, suffering decreases. Acceptance does not mean passivity, it means clarity. If a door closes, do not collapse in complaint. Ask, what skill must I improve? What habit must I change? What perspective must I adjust? Every obstacle becomes a mirror. Over time, this mindset transforms your identity. You no longer fear difficulty, you welcome it, because you understand its role in shaping strength. This shift is magnetic. People who avoid hardship remain reactive. People who embrace hardship become prepared. Prepared individuals radiate quiet confidence. They have faced discomfort and survived it. And survival builds presence. When others panic, you remain steady. When others complain, you adjust. When others quit, you persist. Persistence outlasts talent. Many goals fail, not because they are impossible, but because the person pursuing them stops when resistance appears. The Stoic expects resistance. Therefore, he is not shocked by it. Expectation reduces emotional disruption. If you assume obstacles are part of the journey, you respond to them calmly. If you assume life should be smooth, every challenge feels like injustice. Choose the first assumption. The obstacle is not against you, it is for you. Financial hardship teaches resourcefulness. Criticism teaches composure. Delay teaches patience. Loss teaches gratitude. Each difficulty strengthens a different muscle of character, and character determines destiny. When you embrace obstacles, you also eliminate victim mentality. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You begin building strength regardless of environment. This is power. The world respects those who endure quietly. It notices those who adapt instead of complain. Opportunity seeks those who are reliable under pressure. Pressure reveals integrity. If you can remain disciplined when progress is slow, calm when criticized, focused when distracted, and determined when discouraged, you become rare. Rarity attracts value. Over years, the accumulation of endured obstacles creates depth. Depth creates wisdom. Wisdom creates influence. And influence shapes outcomes. Instead of asking for an easier path, ask for greater strength. Instead of praying for fewer problems, train for greater resilience. Every obstacle you overcome expands your capacity. Expanded capacity allows you to hold larger goals. That is how manifestation truly works. You do not force the world to give you more. You become capable of carrying more. So the next time resistance appears, do not retreat. Study it, learn from it, use it. Because what stands in your way today may be the very thing preparing you for tomorrow's success. The obstacle is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Chapter 6. Rule 6. Live with purpose, not approval. The final rule that brings everything together is this: live for purpose, not approval. Many people spend their entire lives chasing validation. They adjust their behavior to fit expectations. They soften their opinions to avoid criticism. They measure their worth by applause. But approval is unstable. It shifts with trends, moods, and public opinion. If your direction depends on it, your life will constantly drift. The foundation of Stoicism is internal authority. The Stoic does not ask, will they approve? He asks, is this aligned with virtue and reason? That alignment becomes his compass. When you live for approval, you lose clarity. You hesitate before acting. You dilute your message. You pursue goals that impress others instead of goals that fulfill you. Over time, this creates quiet resentment and confusion. Purpose eliminates that confusion. Purpose is personal. It is not loud. It does not demand recognition. It simply directs action. When you know why you are doing something, criticism loses power. Praise also loses power. You are anchored. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that the opinion of others cannot define the good. In Meditations, he questioned why we value the approval of people whose judgments change daily. This reflection is still relevant. Think about how often fear of opinion limits potential. People delay starting projects because they fear ridicule. They silence ideas because they fear disagreement. They abandon goals because others doubt them. Approval becomes a prison. But when you shift your focus to purpose, courage increases. You speak more honestly, you act more decisively. You choose long-term integrity over short-term applause. This creates authenticity. Authenticity is powerful because it is rare. Many individuals mirror the expectations around them. Few act from internal conviction. Those who do often stand out. Standing out attracts opportunity. The philosopher Epictetus taught that if you seek to improve, you must be willing to appear foolish in the eyes of others. Growth often looks strange at first. Discipline may look extreme. Silence may look weakness. Patience may look passivity. But over time, results speak louder than opinions. When you live for purpose, your energy is preserved. You no longer waste time managing perception. You no longer obsess over how you are being viewed. That mental freedom increases productivity. It also increases peace. Approval seeking creates anxiety because it depends on variables you cannot control. Different people hold different standards. Pleasing everyone is impossible. Attempting it fractures your identity. Purpose unifies identity. When your actions align with your principles, you experience internal coherence. Decisions become simpler. Opportunities become clearer. You filter choices by alignment rather than popularity. This alignment builds confidence. Confidence rooted in purpose is stable. It does not collapse under criticism. It does not inflate under praise. It remains steady because it is self-generated. And steady confidence attracts trust. People are drawn to those who stand for something. Even those who disagree often respect conviction, but those who constantly shift positions to gain approval rarely inspire confidence. Purpose also protects long-term goals. If you chase popularity, you may sacrifice values for quick validation. If you chase purpose, you protect integrity even when recognition is delayed. Delayed recognition is not failure. It is refinement. Many great achievements were misunderstood at first. Many disciplined individuals were doubted before they were respected. If they had relied on approval, they would have stopped. Instead, they relied on purpose. Living for purpose does not mean ignoring feedback. It means filtering feedback wisely. Constructive criticism improves skill. Malicious opinion can be discarded. You learn to differentiate between the two. This discernment strengthens judgment. When your life is guided by purpose, rejection feels lighter. If someone does not align with your direction, you release them respectfully. If an opportunity requires you to compromise your standards, you decline it calmly. That calm refusal builds dignity. Dignity builds influence. Influence shapes outcomes. You also become less reactive to trends. Trends are temporary. Purpose is enduring. When you act from purpose, your work carries depth. Depth outlasts surface appeal. Over time, people begin to sense that you are not easily swayed. That steadiness communicates strength, and strength commands respect without demanding it. There is freedom in not needing approval. You wake up and act according to principle. You improve because growth matters to you, not because praise demands it. You contribute because contribution fulfills you, not because it earns applause. This internal orientation changes your posture. You walk differently, you speak differently, you decide differently. You become internally directed rather than externally controlled. Manifestation then becomes natural, not because you are trying to impress the world, but because your clarity sharpens action. Your action builds results. Your results generate recognition as a byproduct, not a goal. And when recognition arrives, it does not control you. You remain grounded. Purpose is quiet power. It allows you to endure doubt, delay, and misunderstanding. It keeps you consistent when excitement fades. It sustains you when applause is absent. If you want everything to come to you, stop chasing approval. Start honoring purpose. Approval is temporary. Purpose is permanent. Live from the permanent, and the temporary will follow.